as Nexpo would say, it's down the rabbit hole. We'll be looking over common examples of ARGs and my personal takes, what I like about the specific common analog horror and what I don't like. Conclusion. Number one, so a brief introduction into what is unfiction, what is analog horror, and what are ARGs. First of all, so unfiction is essentially a type of media that is presented as if it's real. So think of it like, for example, think of those frat boys who really like to say, no, man, I got a girlfriend, she just goes to another school. No, she doesn't. She does not exist. Similar to unfiction. It's a form of storytelling to say, like, to present it as real, even though we all know it isn't, including the creator. ARG is kind of a an offset of that. It is considered an unfiction project, although the difference is unfiction is usually a single platform-based media project, while ARGs span multi-platform. So maybe a character is posting stuff on YouTube, but also using Twitter to communicate with fans, and normally in ARGs you will see puzzles and a shit ton more fan interaction. So yeah. So then that leads to the final question. What is analog horror? Well, it's simple. Analog horror is horror without the analog horror is horror with an analog aesthetic. Okay? What the fuck is analog? Somebody out here, tell me what analog is.
Another thing.
Oh, actually, I'll give you an answer. This is what Wikipedia said. Relating to using signals or information represented by continuous variables, such as physical quantity, such as spatial positions, voltage, etc. So that means this is analog. So is this telephone.
I think you're fine. Because it was like, yeah.
Human vocal cords are analog. Sound waves are analog. VHS tapes are analog. This fucking Garfield telephone is analog. Do any of this picture analog horror to you?
That costs $157.
How did you? It does.
It's him.
Yeah.
I am flabbergasted. Because I found this photo on Etsy, or not Etsy, on eBay, and it cost $157. And I'm like, who would pay $157 for a Garfield telephone?
Hero, when's your birthday?
I now know who would pay
$157
for a Garfield phone.
Oh.
So, what actually analog horror is, it's horror with the use of, or the mimicking of, vintage technology. So instead of it being the Garfield clock, it's this is a Wikipedia quote, if you would like it. This also just goes in a little bit more of like the history of it. Also, it says that it's a found footage genre, but I disagree. Anyways, I'll get to that. So that leads us into a second part. How do we identify analog horror? So a lot of the characteristics are low field graphics, VHS tapes, 20th century television, vintage record devices, TV box sets, lost media, which highly recommend. Me and Elizabeth, I believe, have seen this video together. Highly recommend.
Jorge, right? Is it Blame It on Jorge? Didn't he upload that one?
No, I believe it's Nexpo's Disturbing Things from Around the Internet, Volume 8, I believe.
Okay.
Essentially, this is an old Japanese commercial that's really creepy. For some reason, it's not entirely all Japanese, so we can't translate it. It's cryptic. It aired for a week and then disappeared forever, and nobody knows what it means. Lost media, highly recommend. But it also uses aesthetics such as vaporwave, and a lot of times you can see things like low poly graphics, especially from like PS1 and stuff like that. So that's normally what you see when it comes to analog horror. Though these descriptions aren't perfect. Not a lot of time there's a mix-up between found footage and analog horror. You can have a show or an unfiction project that is found footage but not analog, such as Marble Hornets Hero.
Is Pop Tropica analog horror?
Ooh, I haven't checked out Pop Tropica in such a long time. I don't know. I'll have to get back to you
I
on
would
that.
think it'd be unfiction.
I think it's just unfiction. I don't think it's analog. But yeah, like Marble Hornets is a really good example of unfiction because it wasn't trying to mimic vintage technology. It was just using
Petscop.
modern day technology. Well, then that brings me to another thing. Not all vintage is analog horror. You can look at unfiction projects such as Petscop, but I would argue that that's not analog horror because it's not making a use of all the technology of vintage technology. It's just simplifying or trying to hone in on one type, which is just, ooh, creepy video game. Like, I wouldn't call Ben's Round an analog horror. I would just call it
It's just a creepypasta.
yeah, it's just a creepypasta. It's just a vintage horror or vintage unfiction project. So now is my favorite part. This is where I yap for days. It's time to go down the rabbit hole. And starting with number one, my favorite analog horror project. Oh, honorable mentions before we start that. These didn't make it either because I didn't feel like talking about them. I didn't feel like it met the criteria. I wanted to do something different, or I just don't know enough about it. Gemini Home Entertainment, it's so amazing. I just didn't want to talk about it because I wanted to shine some light on some other stuff. Ikaba, it's created by the same people who made Marble Hornets, which if you don't know, that's my special interest, so highly recommend checking it out. I have yet to watch it though, so I didn't want to add it. Walton Files, I love it. It is, I would consider it analog horror. I just didn't want to talk about it. CH/SS, really, really good, but it's really short. It's really straightforward. Again, just want to do something a little different. Serial Broadcast Heart's amazing. Have yet to see it. Marble Hornets is not analog. No matter what Wikipedia tells you, it's not analog. It's found footage. First up, Local 58. My favorite analog project. So Local 58 is about a news broadcasting station in, I had to look this up, Madison County, West Virginia, so like middle of nowhere. And it started in the 1930s, and throughout the decades, it's constantly hijacked by something. We don't know who, we don't know what, but it is constantly hijacked with weird and bizarre and terrifying hijackings. I don't know. Quick trigger warning, I will be talking about self-harm and suicide, so trigger warning for that. If you don't like that, feel free to leave. But I think we're all good with that. Are we all okay hearing about that? Cool.
I forgot.
So these are my ratings. Story, 8 out of 10. The only reason I don't give it a 10 out of 10, despite the fact it being my favorite, is I feel like everything feels a little too, like, broken up. Like, it's hard to string everything together. It's a little hard to find a story throughout it. You have repetitive, so sorry, I'm forgetting my word. Repetitive themes throughout the episodes, but it's a little hard to like piece a story. Now granted, Local 58 is still running, it's still going, so we don't have all the answers yet, but I don't know, it just doesn't feel fully complete yet, but I'm sure that will change when we get it completed. Spookometer, 10 out of 10. This is the most terrifying analog horror I have ever watched in my life, and that's saying something. I love horror. It's one of my favorite genres, like to ever goes. And and it's not even because it's like actively scary, but it just, the psychology of it and the way that it like toys with your brain. Ooh, no, thank you. Production, 10 out of 10. It's created, like, the creator, he's already done unfiction projects, and he like, just his art is amazing. Highly recommend. Analog aspect, 10 out of 10. This is known to be one of the original inspirations for analog horror in the modern age. Of course, analog horror goes all the way back to the 50s, but in the modern era, this was kind of like the spark of what made it so popular in unfiction places. Writing, 8 out of 10. It's the same thing. It just doesn't feel like there's quite a story yet, but I'm sure that will change. So overall, 9.2 out of 10. Personally, scrapping all of this, my very biased opinion, it's a 10 out of 10. It's so amazing. It's so beautiful. It's written fantastically. The visuals are amazing. The horror is amazing. So if that's something you look for, 10 out of 10. Favorite episode, Consenting. I can't fucking talk today. Continuing. Please help me.
Contingency.
Contingency.
That word.
You did a sentence.
Contingency. Close enough. 10 out of 10 episode, which in fact is where the most banger quote comes from. Before we get to that, least favorite episode, show for children. If you've seen it, I like it. No, hear me out. This isn't me saying it's a bad episode by any means. It's wonderful. It's beautifully made. The art in it is amazing. The entire time, it's just a little goofy.
Consider yourself an op. Consider yourself.
Is it the one with the skeleton?
Yeah, it's the one with the skeleton. It's just, bro's, he's a living skeleton. He's walking to a grave. He looks down. He sees a real skeleton. He goes,
You're trying to
Oh,
indoctrinate
no.
the children into being so that like they no longer feel the fear when they see it.
I get it, but just from the spook perspective, it just wasn't all there. He looks in a grave and he goes, huh. Ding-a-ling-a-ling. Like, it's like,
Ugh.
No, you brother, I'm not saying it's a bad episode by any means. It's still amazing. It's just not my favorite. Most memorable quote. This message will repeat until there's none left to read it. For the context of that, a broadcast made in the 1950s, a hijacked broadcast was leaked on Local 58, where it's essentially America saying that we are under attack and that there is nothing we can do to fight back. And instead of backing down, and instead of, because you know, Americans, God bless our troops, God bless our country, and start your engine. Like, you know how this is. So instead of being like, oh, we're under attack, everybody hide, it's like, no, you're going out as an American. Grab a gun, take your family out on your lawn, shoot all of them, and then yourself. This message will repeat until there's none left to read it. Chills every single time. After watching that, I had to like pause and be like, the US just really asked us to kill ourselves. Only 4 minutes later, somebody go, hey, don't do that. That's it, that's the whole episode. It's crazy. Highly recommend that episode. Key points, why do I like it so much? I feel like it does analog horror really, really well. Like I stated up here, it's like the first ever case of analog horror, or in the modern era. It's supposed to be really good. Production is fucking insane, and it's genuinely terrifying. So, highly recommend checking out Local 58. Next up is the Mandela Catalog, which before I begin, we do have to address the creator sucks. Tomatoes.
What did the creator do?
Touch kids.
It was for touching kids, wasn't it?
In the Discord chat.
In a Discord chat. But I feel like
It
I'm
is
gonna
worse than
separate
that.
the art from the artist here. I'm not somebody who normally does that, but I feel like this is a case where I'm gonna have to. So essentially, Mandela Catalogs is a story about this place called Mandela County, where we don't know if it's like an alien invasion or what, but these group of alternates will come into. They will what?
I thought it was
They will follow you around, and then they will like come into your house, and they will psychologically torture you for days on end, months even, until you have nothing else, and you either let yourself get killed by an alternate or shoot yourself. And essentially then it will take your form, creating the form of a doppelganger, although they're not always perfect, and try to basically reenact your life and reenact you in order to kill more of your friends and family. Really scary premise.
I thought it was confirmed that they were like demons or something.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're demons. Also, apparently they also made a doppelganger of Jesus Christ.
But luckily, like a really, really hot ghost hunter who helps us throughout the entirety of the Mandela Catalog. You're Pookie. Come on.
Oh, we'll get to him.
Come on.
My ratings in the Mandela Catalog. Story, 10 out of 10. That premise is one of the most terrifying to me. I know alternates aren't real, but when I close my when I turn off my lights at night and I'm downstairs and I'm walking upstairs, there's an alternate behind me. Like, genuinely, I know they're not real. I don't care. That shakes me to the core. The fact that there even could be an alternate there is terrifying enough. Spigot meter, 8 out of 10. And I'll get to why it's not a 10 out of 10 because the premise is terrifying. But I'll get to why I can't help but laugh a little. Production, 9 out of 10. We'll get to that. Analog, 9 out of 10. Again, it's done really well. Oh, going back to the production for a quick second, there's a couple of moments where you can obviously tell that it's green screened, and it takes you out of it so quickly. Not to mention some of the voice acting in the beginning is really shit. But it really takes you out of the experience, I feel like. But it has gotten better and it is evolving. But so that's why it's like it's not all the way there, but I feel like it does enough where it still earns a 9. But it's just there are just some moments where it's like, really? Writing, 8 out of 10. Again, I feel like some of the characters are convoluted. There's a lot of plot holes that I feel like definitely need to be filled. And again, it's ongoing, so I'm trying to get the benefit of the doubt. But yeah. Overall, 8.8 out of 10. Highly recommended. Again, creator, tomatoes. My take, 9 out of 10. Again, there's just some moments where it has to take you out of the experience, but overall, it's made really well, and it's so great. Favorite episode is the first one, especially when it's running through, I believe it's like the take or the care procedure, where you get, again, the banger line, K is for kill yourself. Least favorite episode, interlude. It just wasn't all that for me. It's like 1 minute and 20 seconds of just, ooh, spooky. I don't know, it just doesn't do anything for me. K is for kill yourself, the most memorable thing. When it's going through this anagram of how to protect yourself in front of a doppelganger, it goes through each of the instructions, and it's an anagram. And when it gets to K, it's supposed to say like keep fighting or something, but it flashes and instead says kill yourself. There's only enough room for one of you. Chills, man. I don't like that. Why I like it so much, the plot and the premise, like I said again, literally terrifying. I know it's not real. I'm still scared of alternates. The characters, well, again, yes, it's kind of convoluted and the voice acting is kind of crap in the beginning. The characters are really enjoyable and I thoroughly enjoy going along with them and like understanding the story. Now this is why we give the Spooko meter an 8, because I want you to just look at some of these guys and really, really look at them. What am I even?
Wait, Rose, it was like I looked at the homeless guy that tried to get us in the subway. That guy was just like him.
Bro is on Molly right now.
Evil pert.
She's from Interlude. She's the entire scare factor of Interlude. Look at her.
Is she like a nun?
Yeah, she's a nun. Look at this. He looks like you'd be at a birthday party. I wouldn't allow him your kids, but a birthday party, sure.
Neither the creator of the Mandela catalog.
Oh my god, guys, it's a self-insert. That just looks like a bad reenaction of the Scream face, though I will admit, it did creep me out the first time. But yeah, so you understand why the Spooko meter's not all there.
Oh, that's actually horrifying. The face at me ever again.
And finally, why I like the plot so much. So there's a man, his name is Thorn Baker, aka Teenage Disaster, aka Thatcher Davis. He's the main character, and he's also my husband. He just doesn't know it yet. I've met the man, by the way, like in real life. He's really sweet. And when I met him, I only know him. We met him. Yeah, do you remember after we met Thorn? Or not Thorn, Suburban. We also met him.
That Teenage Disaster.
It's crazy. He was there. He was there.
When you're talking, he like slips like a ring on his finger. Like,
I had him sign. Well, when I was talking with, when we had like a brief talk, I did not know he was part of the Mandela catalogs. I just knew him as Teenage Disaster, and even then, I didn't know his music very well. It was only when I was rewatching the Mandela catalogs the next day did I realize who he was. So yeah, he's my husband. He's so scrunkle. I love him. Okay, third up.
He looked like a Dorito.
Monument Mythos.
God, this one's. I don't like this one. In a good way.
Where do I start?
You don't.
Good answer. Alternate universes. There's these special trees that take you to hell or heaven. And they also take you to other dimensions.
They take you to a special tree plane.
There's a lot of living statues and memorials that try to eat immigrants. I'm not making this up. This sounds really racist, but like it's canon. They eat Italians. Anyways, vote Rockefeller president 2024. Jacob.
Is that the one where the Statue of Liberty comes to life?
No, that's
No,
Chapel
no,
Rock.
that-
That's the wrong one.
The Statue of
Isn't that
Liberty.
It's the Justice. It's Lady Justice who comes to life. That
Ah.
one.
The Statue.
Donovan.
Never
The
mind.
Statue of Liberty is important though. And
It does eat people.
It holds a monster, and that monster's
The monster's
theorized to be Abraham Lincoln.
I do not even know. This is what I mean. Monument Mythos is a mess.
That's alright.
No, yeah, it does eat Italian immigrants though.
That's the
Alright,
news,
people,
everybody.
Italian.
Anyways, my ratings. Story 8 out of 10. As convoluted and crazy as it is, I just love it. You could chime in anywhere, any place, and just be just as confused as everybody else who was there from the beginning. Half of the time, it doesn't make sense, but it's such a creative premise. I feel like you can't help but love it. Who would have thought about Hillary Clinton becomes president and then nukes a trading boat, and then the trading boat comes to life?
The crab boat.
Who would have the crab? Who would have thought of that?
Someone took like, way
Alcatraz.
too many edibles. Someone totally like.
Alcatraz just starts walking. The island, the prisoner island, starts walking around the USA.
No, it starts multiplying like
Oh
kids.
yeah, that's what it does. See, I don't even know, and I'm like a big fan of this. So, does it make sense? No, but that's the fun of it. Try watching this while on an edible. Elizabeth, remind me to do that next time we hang out.
Will you do that together?
I'd be so down. Spookometer 5 of 10. Because, I mean, listen to just everything I just told you. Not a damn spook in sight. Production 10 out of 10. Despite all the craziness, it is wonderfully made. All the visuals are incredible. Analog, I think it works really well. There's one portion I feel like it doesn't, but other than that, it's great. Writing, again, I should really bump that down a couple notches. I did not mean 10 out of 10 on that one. Now rethinking, I'd probably give it like a 6 out of 10 just because how convoluted again, but I give it points for creativity. Overall, my take, 8.7. I thoroughly enjoy it. Favorite episode, the Washington Wormhole, which again, this comes from. Least favorite episode, there's like over 200 episodes and like 9 hours of content. I am not choosing. That implies that I would need to care about it so much that I actively knew, and I don't. Anyways, most memorable quote: "You can exchange a life for you can exchange your life. You can exchange a life for your own." Essentially, a woman is about to be sacrificed to the Washington Monument. Stay with me here. And she like climbs up it, and she's like forced to jump like inside of it. She takes an elevator up, and she's pushed out of it. And as she falls, she hits the floor. And instead of her dying, she was pregnant, by the way. Her unborn baby child is dead instead of her, and she walks out no longer a pregnant woman, losing her unborn son. And I believe she ends up killing herself after that.
No. I thought the son was born. He was like,
No, he wasn't born. What ended up happening, I don't want to give too many spoilers, but he ended up finding himself in like the tree plane or whatever.
oh, okay, so.
Yeah, he was transported there.
Okay, so he wasn't born. I know. I've watched